Good evening, everyone. So today we will be starting with a bladder involvement, neurogenic bladder. Now this is a topic which will be included in the spinal cord itself. So we will be continuing the spinal cord series. But this is a kind of a new topic. We can call it as a subtopic in this a huge topic of spinal cord disease. Now, this neurogenic bladder is something which will tell us where the lesion is. It will help us in a localization. So this is important when the patient comes to you. He comes with a full bladder. He hasn't urinated, or say he has been saying that it has been since 2 to 3 days. He has been having this problem of dribbling of urine. So kind of such diseases or kind of such symptoms will tell us where the disease is, which will help us in the localization. It will help us in the diagnosis. Okay, so we'll start with the neurogenic bladder. Now, how is the bladder working and how is its processes? This is a certain topic which is actually a basic topic, but yes, we need to have a brush. Okay, so first thing first, bladder, we have actually a sympathetic supply to it, we have a parasympathetic supply, and we have a motor, and we have a higher center. Now coming to a parasympathetic, we have a T11 to L2, that is the supply which is actually hypogastric nerve through which the sympathetic supply acts. Then we have a motor, that is actually S2, S3, S4, and it is the voluntary motor supply which is actually from the pudendal nerve. We call it as a UNUP nucleus. Okay, then we have a parasympathetic, remember P for P. We have a pelvic and we have a splanchnic nerve to it, and then we have a higher center. In the higher center, we have certain things like basal ganglia, we have a hypothalamus, we have a insula, we have a cerebellum, we have a forebrain gyrus. Okay, so now what happens is we have a sympathetic supply. Now what happens if you need to void? There would be a detrusor muscle of the bladder, right? So this detrusor muscle bladder will contract, right? And we have external sphincter and we have an internal sphincter. Now, if you talk about the if you want to void, so what will happen? The sphincter should relax, right? Then only the urine from the bladder would be facilitating, and then it would be we can urinate. So it is the detrusor muscle contraction, and then we have the internal sphincter that will be relaxation. This will cause the voiding of the urine. But if you talk about storage of the urine, so it is the internal sphincter which will be stimulated, and the detrusor muscle will be inhibited to contract. Okay, so that is how that would be voiding, and there would be actually a storage that can happen. Now, if you talk about the filling of the bladder, so the first thing is whenever there is a certain amount of the urine that is getting collected, like 150 ml of the urine is getting collected, so that through the A fibers, it will go into the periaqueductal gray matter. Okay, and that is through the posterior column. Okay, and it will go into the pons. Now, in the pons, it is decided whether it has to be a micturition or whether it has to be a storage. Now, if it is a micturition, then it is the M region, and it is an L region that is for that of the storage. Now, if it is a 150 ml, of course, there won't be any micturition because bladder can store this, right? So, when there is a second input, that is the 450 ml of the bladder, that is too much of the urine, right? So that will through the A and C fibers, it will get the signals will be passed from the periaqueductal gray matter to the pons, and from the pons to the M region. Now this is the M region, there where will be micturition which will be happening through the M region. Okay, so that is very much clear, I guess. Then I talked about the higher center, decide when to void and when not to void. So imagine traveling in a bus. So even if you have the urgency, okay, you have this urge, but you will not void. Okay, so that is mostly because of the higher center. Okay, then there is this Bradley loop. Remember the name. What is the loop? There are 5 components to it. First is the cortical region to the pons. From the pons to the bladder is the second one. Then detrusor muscle contraction, that will be from the motor nucleus. Urethral reflex is there, and from the cortex to the pudendal nerve is there. That means if you sometimes you have to go out, okay, and you feel that there won't be any washrooms over there. So what do? You say that let's just micturate and then we can go out. So similar way, if you want to void when the bladder is not even full, you can void. And when you do not want to void, when the bladder is full, then you cannot even void. Okay, it is because of this cortex to the pudendal nerve, that is the Bradley loop component that is responsible for this. Now, there is a UMN bladder, there is an LMN bladder. This is very much, I guess, familiar to all the medicos. UMN bladder, that means U for you, urgency, urgent continence. Okay. I'm talking about the LMN bladder. Now, LMN bladder is something which is there will be flaccid bladder. That means it is something which is stored urine. The urine is not getting out. Okay. So there will be hesitancy. There will be an overflow in content because it has been stored. How much will it store? Not beyond its capacity, right? Another thing is the nucleus retroambiguous. Now this is very important because whenever we are sneezing or coughing, so there will be increase in abdominal pressure and that will pass on, and that's how there can be actually a involuntary micturition that can happen, and that is a small amount of micturition that can happen. But this is not the case. Why? Because there is a nucleus retroambiguous which is controlling the pelvic muscles through the pudendal nerve. Okay, and that's how the pelvic floor muscles will contract, the external sphincter will contract, and it will prevent the urine to come out. Okay. Now, there are three phases of voiding. First is a pre-void, then there is a void, and then there is a post-void. If we talk about the pre-void, that means there will be this feeling, okay? There would be the sensation, there will be urgency, there will be frequency. If we talk about the void means there would be this flow, okay, flow stream. So if you are voluntarily, holding on to the urine, or there is this flow and stream, okay, that is affected. Then we come into the post void. Post void, that means there would be a residual urine if there is a dribbling, if there is a dysuria. That is the post void phase. Okay, so now this is a new classification. This is very important. Everywhere it would be used now. There is a suprapontine, that is above the pons. If there is any lesion, what will happen? If it is below the pons, it is called as infrapontine, or it is called suprasacral, and there is an infrasacral. Now these are the three important things. Suprapontine, UMN lesion. Okay, upper motor neuron. So frequency, urgency, urgent continence. This is there. Will there be any residual urine? No. When it comes to infrasacral, it is an element. Okay, so there will be hesitancy, right? Overflow inconvenience, and there will be a residual urine. But when it comes to a in between part, that is an infrapontine. Okay. Now what happens is there is a UMN element overlap. Now this is because there is this whatever we had the sphincter, right? Then there is a retrusor muscle. So it should be, they should be working together. Like if there is a contraction of retrusor muscle, there should be a relaxation of the sphincter so that the urine is coming out. But in case if it is not happening, that means there would be the overlap of hesitancy with the UMN. That is called retrusor sphincter dyssynergia. So when we do a urodynamic study, uroflowmetry, what will happen is you will get a normal activity in the UMN bladder. Okay, retrusor overactivity would be sensed over there. But here there will be interrupted flow in the uroflowmetry, and there will poor or absent flow in case of an LMN bladder. Okay, so examples being of the suprapontine, there is a Parkinson's, or there is any stroke, dementia, like that. MS, spinal cord injury, trauma, that will come in the UMN element. So that's why this is very important, because the infrapontine will help us to localize if it is a spinal cord disease or not. And the next thing is the peripheral neuropathy, like that, if there is an element bladder. Okay. Another thing is uninhibited cortical bladder. That is a suprapontine bladder, uninhibited cortical bladder. The name itself says that it is a cortex which is causing the problem. It is a human problem, right? And there is an automatic bladder. Automatic bladder, that means if there is any disease of spinal cord, if there is any trauma to the spinal cord, what will happen? The periaqueductal gray matter cannot sense this because it is a spinal cord trauma and cannot give the information to the pons. So will there be any storage? No, there won't be any storage. So what will happen? And so there will be frequently small voiding that will be taking place. Another thing is autonomous bladder. Now this is something which is element bladder. Okay. Then what will happen? There will be a flaccid bladder. So more and more urine is getting collected, and overflow incontinence is there. Another thing is motor atonicity. The name itself suggests there will be certain atonicity. Tone is absent, and element bladder is appreciated here. So no motor supply, have to give pressure to void. This is a CRADE maneuver that is done. And sensory atonicity, again, element bladder. Okay. Another thing is Christmas tree bladder. That is actually seen in neurogenic bladder, which is actually a severe neurogenic bladder, which is seen in multiple sclerosis. This is one of the MCQs, favorite MCQs in the PG as well as in the super specialty. So the thing is, there are certain red flag signs. That means this is not a spinal cord disease, neither there is a stroke, this is something else. Whenever the patient has hematuria, whenever this is something which is related to glomerulus disease, right? Recurrent urinary tract infections, pain originating from the urinary tract, risk from the upper urinary tract damage or any findings on the sonography, local pathologies if there is any, and refractory if the patient is refractory to the treatment. So this is something which is not related to dementia, stroke, Parkinson's, or say a spinal cord disease. So you have to think something else is there, right? So these are the red flag signs. Okay, so I have completed the topic of a neurogenic bladder. I hope it was helpful for all of you. Thank you for watching.